So UX writing is a field in which you will find many career changers. So people who originally used to work in a completely different field before starting a career in UX writing. And one of the most commonly asked questions I get is, how did I become a UX writer? So that's what I will share with you today. Hello everyone, my name is Kat and I teach people about writing in tech. And on this channel you will find everything that you need to know, especially about UX writing. So if you want to learn more about all of that, make sure to hit subscribe and ring the bell. So today I want to talk about my personal journey to becoming a UX writer, and I will also share my experiences and the emotional roller coaster that came with them. So let's start from the very beginning. I have always loved writing. I learned writing and reading at a very young age. My older brother taught me reading and writing when I was only 4 years old, and therefore I was always very good at it. And especially when I was a teenager, I wrote a lot of poems, short stories. I loved journaling, etc. And to be honest, even though writing had always been both my passion and my talent, I never really considered building a career on it, which looking back is pretty strange. But the only thing I always heard about writing was that building a successful career in it and also being financially successful in it was highly unlikely, like in general. And it's only Stephen King and J.K. Rowling who made money out of this craft. So I never really even considered becoming a professional writer. However, I'd always loved languages and communication. So after graduating the German equivalent of high school, I started to study English and intercultural communication. And later I switched to cultural anthropology and intercultural communication, which I truly loved. I think I was easily the most enthusiastic anthropology student of my year, and I just loved it. Now, during that time, I already took on some smaller jobs in the communication departments of bigger companies, largely tech companies and mostly in the automotive industry. I completed a super interesting internship at Volkswagen where I focused on how to communicate about technological innovation. So how do you explain innovation to people? How can you make sure that people build trust with these new technologies and actually use them? And that was also a lot of fun, which also sparked my interest in technology and innovation, which is why I chose to do my master's in exactly this field. So I went to Technical University of Munich and did exactly that. And it was a master's program that was focused on the intersection of technology, innovation, and the human being. So parts of it were quite philosophical, but I also really liked that. Now, my major focus during that time was still communication concerning technology and innovation, and my wildest dream was getting a doctoral degree in this field. First of all, because I really loved this field, and second, because I was the first one of my family to go to university. I even was the first one to complete high school. And while this fact caused me to have the worst anxiety and imposter syndrome my entire life, I still wanted to see how far I can take this. And I also wanted to prove to myself and to the world that I can do it. Even though Germany is definitely one of the countries where achieving academic success is very hard for you, statistically, not factually, if your parents didn't go to university. So this is what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do it desperately, wholeheartedly, because I couldn't wait to dive into one of those topics deeper. So after graduating from my master's, I applied for several programs, talked to some professors, and to be honest, for many months it went pretty bad because most of them had a problem with the very philosophical touch of my master's studies. And most of them assumed I wouldn't do great at empirical research and I wouldn't be able to do a doctoral degree. I really spare you the details of this because it was a time full of low confidence, full of losing hope, being pessimistic about myself, my interests, my skills, my everything. However, in the end, I was admitted to a PhD program at Volkswagen. They believed in me, They always did, because I had proven myself working for them 4 years earlier when I completed an internship in their research and development department. Now, if you know about the industry and academia, you know that professors don't necessarily like these kinds of programs, because they think that the companies basically pay the PhD student money and then they use the dissertation as some sort of marketing tool. But if you ask me, that is a pretty bitter and unfair way to look at it. Most of the time, companies really do want to find out about certain topics and technology, and they have a genuine interest in finding answers to questions that are important to them. And this is what happened in my case. My PhD project was about analyzing human collaboration in innovative technology projects, especially in cases where people from the industry need to work with people from academia. And to be honest, working on this project, finding out about these things, interviewing these people, putting my head in all of those books and studies, all while still working for Volkswagen, was the toughest, most challenging, and yet most rewarding experience of my entire life. And I definitely learned a lot about my field and myself. Now, Volkswagen had offered me a 3-year contract. So when my contract expired, it was time for me to move on. So I started working different jobs in corporate communications. And one of the coolest jobs that I had soon after leaving Volkswagen was working at a large public broadcasting company in Germany. And here I was part of the central software development department, a huge department full of developers, designers, researchers, and so on. 100 people who were responsible for building and maintaining all of the various digital products of this broadcasting company. So for example, their news app, the radio apps, the TV apps, the main website, and so on and so forth. And this department was a buzzing place. It was crazy. It was loud. We had Nerf guns. There was a lot of gaming, watching Netflix together, ordering pizza. So a really, really cool vibe. And in all of this, I was the managing assistant to the head of the department. And I was responsible for managing the stakeholder communication and improve our relationship with them. So it was a lot of visiting other departments, giving presentations about our work, and so on. And here's the thing about that. Because working in this job was the turning point in my career. And that was where I found my initial motivation to start with UX writing. Because what you have to see is this. I was working in this buzzing place. All of the developers and designers around me building all of this cool stuff. But I was one of the people standing on the sideline, right? Watching others do the cool stuff while I was writing emails and polishing PowerPoint presentations. And there was this one thought that started creeping into the back of my head that said, if you don't show up to work tomorrow and you'll never show up again, this team will continue building great stuff. You're absolutely replaceable and the work you do is very dull. I mean, I earned a lot of money, fair enough, but did I provide value to my team especially? No. Could this job have been done by just anybody with no experience and education at all? Yes. Was I pretty much wasting all the knowledge and experience that I had worked for so hard by not using it at all? Yes. Was I just putting together PowerPoint presentations and adding some buzzwords and some BS to it and calling this my job? Yes. And to be honest, I felt like the worst fraud. And adding to that, I've met my boyfriend in this department, and he was a super ambitious UX designer, still is. And I was so impressed by his passion and his devotion, his commitment, the way he worked. He was so obsessed with details and so ambitious to become better and better. And that also applied to all the developers that I had worked with. They were discussing issues with one another, trying to find solutions to tricky problems, and I was there building PowerPoint presentations. I felt really like the least valuable player on the field. Not because of who I was as a person or because my knowledge was of less value, but because my work was. And here it is important to say that this was my personal feeling, right? I was very much overreacting. So if you do a job in which you polish PowerPoint presentations and give presentations, that's totally fine. And in most cases, it's very important to do that. So please keep in mind that this is only my personal experience, okay? Now, during the first year of this job, I was still finishing writing my PhD thesis on the side, right? The dissertation. And I kind of escaped into writing this dissertation week by week because that was where I still felt that passion for my field and craft, right? Which is also why once I was done writing my PhD thesis, I felt completely empty, completely lost, because I had no place left to escape to, no cool task that I could look forward to. So I just went on the hunt for a side job, just went through local job ads to see if there was anything writing related, okay? Because that was what I did with my dissertation thesis, writing. And by chance, I found this job ad that said, ghostwriter, become a ghostwriter in our UX UI agency. And this UX UI agency was not actually looking for a ghostwriter. They were looking for an editor, basically, because they had planned to write a semi-academic book about strategic UX design, and they needed someone who could just advise them with their writing process. So go over their final text, discuss how to present certain information, etc. And that sounded super interesting. So I applied, got hired, and started working for the agency about 5 to 10 hours per week in the evenings, a really small side hustle, and I enjoyed it a lot. I loved it. We even completed the book and published it with Springer, which I'm very proud of. I even still have one of these books with me. Here it is. Now, the point with the agency was that I learned so much about UX and the principles of UX, the spirit of UX, that this field really started growing on me. And when the book was completed, I started working on different tasks. I started writing blog posts for the agency. I started working on pitch presentations, etc. And ultimately, when my contract with my main job at the broadcasting company ended, the agency made me an offer to join them full time. And that I did. And in my first full-time week at the agency, one of the managers asked me, hey, do you know what UX writing is? And I had heard it before, so I said, yes, I kind of know what it is. And he said, hey, could you see yourself doing that? And I was like, yeah, sure, I can. Sounds interesting. And he said, okay, please go figure out how we can use it to help our clients and how we can sell it to clients. And I was like, okay, I'll definitely try. So we made this agreement. I would be responsible for mainly marketing text work like blog posts, LinkedIn posts, Instagram posts, press releases, pitch decks, etc. And next to that, I would also learn about UX writing, because that was a service that we could sell, that we could earn money with, right? So what I did is I started researching for what UX writing was and why it is important. What's the difference between UX writing and copywriting, etc. All of that stuff. And I created a sales concept and we tried to sell it to our existing clients. But this was in 2018. Out of our clients, no one had heard of UX writing in Germany. No one considered it to be essential. Everybody thought it was just the next big buzzword, a new trend that we just wanted to make money with. So all clients rejected us with that, or they rejected me. And at the same time, I was trying to figure out how UX writing really works in practice, right? Like, how do you actually do that? Write UX copy, step by step, from a blank page to an error message. What's the process? There was literally nothing there. And that was another problem, because not only was I not able to sell UX writing to our clients, to be honest, I wouldn't even have known what to do if we sold it. So there was this weird mixture of the fear of not selling UX writing and the fear of actually selling it. But the bigger problem was definitely that I wasn't able to convince people to buy it. And to be honest, at times I was pretty devastated, because I got rejected. And it was painful, especially because once I had learned about what UX writing is, I wanted to do it. I was done writing blog posts and captions. I wanted to write UX copy. So I came up with a plan and sat down with my UX director. And I said, let's not ask our clients anymore if they want to have UX writing or not. Let's not sell it. Let's just make this part of the UX design package that we already sell. It's an integral part of UX design, and we need to treat it as such. And after some back and forth, he agreed. And then my bosses agreed with that as well. And from that day on, we really just treated UX writing as an essential part of our UX design package. And I don't know if this is relatable, but it makes me so emotional going back to that moment, because this day was the actual start of my career as a UX writer. And it was also a big victory for me, because I saw that not only I trusted UX writing, but also my bosses did, and they were willing to commit. So we started offering UX writing to every client, and that was when I had to really get my stuff together. Needed to learn how to use Figma, which I was so embarrassingly bad at, and needed to learn how to write UX copy. And there still weren't any resources out there, so I had to come up with my own process. And after a few months, I also needed to figure out how to write a style guide, and how to document UX copy properly, and how to do user research for UX writing properly, etc. Still with little to no resources out there. I really had to go figure these things out while doing them. And that was also the time when in my free time I started to create little online courses about UX writing, about everything that I've learned that had worked in practice. I just wanted to share my knowledge, because I knew how it feels when you really want to work with UX writing and you don't even know where to start, right? So that's what I did on the side. Now then, after some time, maybe a year or something, UX writing started to become really big, even in Germany, and clients became super interested in it. Suddenly, I was invited to podcasts, I was asked to give talks. Clients called us to work with me for UX writing only, because back then we were one of the few agencies to even offer that service in Germany. And the absolute big breakthrough was when one of the biggest and most prestigious German automotive brands called us and said, "We heard Katharina talk about UX writing in a podcast and we want to work with her." Up until this day, it was one of the coolest and most interesting projects that I have ever worked on, because they knew a lot about UX writing already and they had very specific, very advanced requests, and I loved it. At the same time, I had to balance all the other client projects, because I was still the only UX writer at the agency, and I was also still the only writer for all those marketing texts. So in addition to all the UX writing, I was still writing blog posts and Instagram captions. At the peak of this, I had worked for about 10 clients at the same time. And can you guess what happened next? My working life became a race. A rat race. I had to juggle all the client projects, all their requests, all the meetings, the calls, everything. And it took a toll on me. I started to get overwhelmed and I was slowly burning out. Because every time I was sick or I went on vacation, I came back to more work, because there was no one else who could do it while I was absent. So after 2 years, at some point, I begged my management to please hire a second UX writer to support me. And they said no. I also begged them to please hire someone to help me with these blog posts and Instagram captions. And they said no. They just told me to better organize myself and work more efficiently. And I really tried, but I kept on burning out. And I remember sitting on my couch in my living room and telling my boyfriend, "I can't go to work tomorrow. I have nothing left to give." So I knew it was time to leave, or else I would completely ruin my physical and mental health. So I left. And looking back, it was already kind of too late, because my health already started to decline at that time. I saw signs of burnout in me, and probably I should have left a lot earlier. However, by the time I did leave, I had already grown the audience of my online courses, and I had tons of personal requests from potential clients who wanted to work with me and me only. So I thought, I need to find a job that allows me to listen to my body, to take breaks when I needed them, to not take more clients than I could handle. So I decided to work for myself for some time and became a freelancer. That was in 2022, and I am still working as a freelancer, which allows me to make these YouTube videos and have my Instagram account and so on. And of course, it also has been hard at some times. I needed to figure out a lot of things about running your own business, setting boundaries, etc. But It is a lot of fun and it gives me so much flexibility and I love it. And by the way, I also have a course about freelancing and UX writing. If you also want to try that, you can find the link in the description below. And I will also put my transitioning into UX writing course down there, which is where you will learn how to enter the field of UX writing and start a career in it. So this is it. This is how I became a UX writer. And I would like to give you some personal advice here, which may be helpful when you want to break into UX writing as well. First of all, it's still a young discipline, so there is still no beaten path. You have to find your own. Second, do your homework. Times have changed. This is not 2018 anymore. People and companies and clients have knowledge about UX writing, and they will expect you to have more knowledge than them. But still, don't stress about not being perfect in the beginning or not knowing an answer to everything, okay? It is impossible to learn all you need to know about UX writing in theory only. You have to go out there and actually do the job, okay? So for example, my online courses are 50% about giving you knowledge and skills and 50% about giving you confidence and courage to go out there and start working, okay? And ultimately, keep in mind, entering a new field can be tough. There are so many new things to learn, to read, to know, to do. It can get overwhelming. Please keep in mind you have been trusted with a body and soul. UX writing is great, but no job in this world is worth ruining your health, okay? Never lose yourself over a job. Opportunities will go and they will come again. You may fail today, but succeed next week, okay? So keep your head up, keep your spirit high, okay? This is your personal big sister advice from me. So what better words could we find to end this video than these? So as always, if you have any questions or if you want to share your experience, let me know in the comments. Feel free to share your thoughts, okay? Because we're all very interested in them. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, where I also share free tips and tricks about writing in tech and especially UX writing. And other than that, there is nothing left to say except for keep on writing, enjoy the process, and I hope to see you sometime soon.